You're watching East Asia Tonight on CNA. Taiwan's ruling Democratic Progressive Party is getting ready to assume a historic third term in power. William Lai of the independence-leaning DPP is set to be sworn in as the island's next president on May 20th. And at the same time, lawmakers from his party are ramping up a campaign to remove the statues of former leader Chiang Kai-shek. Well, they see these as symbols of authoritarianism linked to Beijing-friendly opposition, KMT. More from CNA's Victoria Jen.
This is a statue of Chiang Kai-shek, leader of the Republic of China between 1928 to 1975. It was built in 1980 by the Kuomintang government in Taiwan, led by his son. There used to be thousands of similar but smaller statues of Chiang all across Taiwan. In 1987, when martial law was lifted, some 4,500 statues were counted. But in recent years, their number has dropped to fewer than 800. This park in northern Taiwan is a popular tourist attraction. The reason for its popularity, these Chiang statues. The Democratic Progressive Party government began a campaign against Chiang's legacy and removed his statues from public places from as early as 2000. Some of the purged objects were moved here. Over time, the park became a place of pilgrimage for Chiang's admirers. The collection of Chiang statues at this park may grow larger soon, with the DPP government set to accelerate the purging of the remaining Chiang statues on the island.
Joining us now for more, we have Dr. Lim Tai Wei. He's an adjunct senior research fellow at the National University of Singapore's East Asia Institute, and he's speaking to us from Tokyo. And we also have CNA Taiwan correspondent Victoria Jen, and she joins us from Taipei. Well, first question over to you, Victoria. I guess help our viewers understand what this purge is all about, and why is DPP speeding up the campaign to remove all these statues?
Well, that's because it's it's part of the Transitional Justice Commission that the DPP has set up, because they have always viewed Chiang Kai-shek as a dictator, and that it's a foreign regime that came from China, so that they have taken over Taiwan, and they have ruled ever since under martial law. And that is under his leadership, there was no freedom of speech, and also there have been massacres in 1947, which thousands of protesters were murdered. And as a result, they have this resentment towards Chiang Kai-shek, and they don't think that his statues actually resembles symbols of dictatorship and also authoritarian regime, so that they don't think that they should be erected around the island.
Dr. Lim, we can certainly understand why, one camp has this resentment. But also, what about the argument that the removal of the statues is sort of aimed at airbrushing out perhaps the uncomfortable truths about Taiwan's past?
Well, there are certain factions that have this thought that history should be preserved as it is. And there are also other factions, particularly with the military elements, that feel that Chiang has actually set up military academies and participated in a war of resistance against external enemies. And therefore, he does have his part in history, and also played a role in setting up modern Taiwan. So there are sort of forces and elements that do have thoughts that are connected with what you mentioned.
Victoria, DPP, aside of, this campaign to try and remove these statues, they've also been accused of doing more than just that?
That's right, Otali. We know that the DPP, they do not consider Taiwan as part of China. So the same thing goes with its history. Now, since Chen Shui-bian from the DPP won the presidency in 2000, he had launched a series of he has launched a series of educational reform to remove the Chinese history from the high school textbook. And such reform has continued when President Tsai Ing-wen took office in 2016. And so this has made Beijing very angry, especially they were accusing Taiwan of diluting the Chinese history. For example, China has accused Taiwan of reducing 95% of the history on the 1911 revolution, which ended the Qing dynasty. And so China has been slamming the DPP for distorting history as well as advancing its independence agenda. Now, Dr. Lim, I have a question for you, and that is, why do you think this has come at a time when William Lai is about to take office on May 20th, and also whether or not this is going to further aggravate Beijing?
Well, some say that the sinicization, as you have mentioned, is taking place along party lines. And it is also taking place along demographic lines because the younger generation tends to view democracy with a greater interest. So it remains to be seen what will eventually happen to the plan to remove the statues and place it in the park near Taoyuan. The symbolism of the park will also be, up to interpretation once all the statues gather there. So I think in a polarized situation, before a very significant event of Mr. Lai taking part, there is probably an open dialogue, particularly in Taiwan's democratic society, about what to do with the legacy of Mr. Chiang's history. And I wonder if, Victoria, if you have heard of anything or any intentions for the purpose of the park in the near future as more statues are added to it.
Well, basically, they are because the tomb of Chiang Kai-shek is actually resting in the same place. So that is why the statues were also placed there. And so in the future, there's definitely going to be more statues that are going to be removed there.
Mm. Now, speaking of, open dialogue and having those sort of conversations, what is the general sentiment among the Taiwanese when it comes to the removal of Chiang's statue? Well, our team asked some of the locals, and let's have a listen as to what they have to say.
如果说以我个人的观感，我是觉得说没有那个必要啦，因为你这个是历史的那种，就是他们的作业嘛，他们的那种。他们有他们的那个丰功伟绩一类的东西，那你执政者你不应该就是说抹灭掉他们的这些东西。
这个意识形态没有必要啦，这个人都已经过去了，不管他的功过如何，这历史大家都可以看得到。
So, Dr. Lim, we've just heard there just a glimpse of some sentiment where, some of them are saying that, there's no need to erase history. So, Dr. Lim, in your opinion, this campaign then to remove the statues, is it a form of authoritarianism itself, where you have this particular political ideology that's seeking to impose its views on the public space to a certain extent?
Well, it's part of a global trend because you do see this sort of in different forms in other democratic society due to the current what has been happening in the past few years, the cancel movements and the wokeness movement. And so it is part of a global trend that there's a need to address history. The most important part is actually to have an open dialogue and conversation between different factions, different views and opinions before the changes are carried out. And of course, the ultimate decision lies with the Taiwanese people as to what they want to do with heritage conservation, because this is also very much about heritage conservation and curation of important events in the past that have significant historical value for future generations of Taiwanese people. So this is something that particularly in an open and democratic society, that there's a need for open conversations and dialogue.
And I'm sure that will happen. Well, thanks so very much for your time and thoughts, Dr. Lim Tai Wei from NUS East Asia Institute and CNA's Victoria Jen in Taipei.